Good morning, buenos días. It's a pleasure to be here to speak this morning about optimizing condition-based maintenance decisions. I want to
Es un placer para mí estar nuevamente con ustedes y poder hablarles sobre gestión de activos.
say something about the history of optimizing condition-based maintenance decisions, and then talk about something that's going on right now with research to try and do an even better job than we have done in the past.
Quisiera hablarles un poquito de la historia del mantenimiento centrado en condición y a continuación contarles de los avances actuales en el tema.
When I think of condition-based maintenance, I think of an analogy which is the heart, and asking ourselves the question, what's the probability or what is the risk of suffering heart failure?
Cuando pienso en mantenimiento centrado en condición, hago una analogía con el corazón y me pregunto cuáles son los factores que generan riesgo y que provocan la falla cardíaca.
And the probability of any of us suffering heart failure may depend upon our age and may depend on certain risk factors. For example, should we pay attention to cholesterol, blood pressure, etc.?
La probabilidad de que suframos un ataque cardíaco, claro que tiene que ver con la edad, pero además tiene que ver con otros factores de riesgo, entre ellos el nivel de colesterol, la presión sanguínea, fumar, el estilo de vida, etc.
And we want to find out for ourselves what our important risk factors are.
Es muy relevante entender cuál de esos factores son los más importantes afectando la probabilidad de que ocurra la falla.
Just the same if we're doing condition monitoring. For example, if we're doing oil analysis, should we pay attention to the parts per million iron, parts per million copper, or is it better to pay attention to the rate of change of the iron, the rate of change of the copper, or better to pay attention to the cumulative value of the iron, the cumulative value of the copper? There are many possibilities.
Si nos movemos al caso de un componente de un equipo móvil como ese motor, entonces tenemos muchos factores de riesgo posibles. Por ejemplo, del análisis de aceite aparecen diferentes trazas de diferentes metales. ¿Cuáles serán los más importantes que denoten tempranamente el que va a ocurrir la falla?
The common approach that is adopted to monitor the health of equipment subject to condition monitoring is often rooted in statistical process control, using charts something like the one we see on the diagram. It is very simple to understand.
Una forma tradicional de hacer este seguimiento de la condición es usar control estadístico de procesos y fijar ciertos niveles de advertencia y de alarma.
But there are certain limitations. For example, what are the limits? Certain limitations. Which measurements should we really pay attention to? Is it the iron, or the rate of the change of iron, or the cumulative value of the iron? Many, many possibilities. And we would like to know which ones really are highly correlated with the failure mode we're trying to prevent.
Es muy importante que logremos establecer cuáles son los factores que realmente afectan la probabilidad de falla, entre las muchas posibilidades disponibles.
Also, what are the best limits for the measurements we're taking? What's the effective age on the probability of a failure occurring? Can we make predictions? What's the consequence of failure? These issues are not addressed very efficiently in the classical approach.
En el enfoque clásico que ven en la pizarra, es bastante limitado en cuanto a cómo fijar los límites que denoten la advertencia y la alarma, o evaluar el efecto de la edad, o hacer predicciones a futuro, o evaluar las consecuencias de la falla.
So in research, we've been trying to extend this classical approach to optimize condition-based maintenance decisions and enhance the control chart technique.
Nuestra idea es optimizar el mantenimiento centrado en condición para mejorar la técnica que ven en pantalla.
And what we have developed is this new chart that removes many of the limitations that I spoke about before.
Y hemos llegado a este nuevo diagrama que trabaja varias limitaciones que ya he mencionado previamente.
For example, on the x-axis, we have the age of the item at the time of inspection. On the y-axis, we have a z-score, and the z-score comes from knowing of all the condition monitoring measurements you're taking, the most important ones. In this example, it was 2 vibration monitoring measurements. The second one was in the vertical direction, and we know how important these measurements are. These are given by their weights. So you get your measurement, multiply it by its weight, and add them together to get a z-score.
Bien, este es el gráfico, entendámoslo bien. En el eje X está la edad del componente, el tiempo que ha pasado o el uso que ha pasado desde que lo instalé o desde la última vez que lo reacondicioné. En el eje Y hay un polinomio, el polinomio Z. Y ese polinomio es una combinación de los factores de riesgo que sí importan, ponderados por unos factores de peso, que son los números que aparecen en el lado izquierdo de cada indicador de riesgo. Eso construye el polinomio Z.
And if we see this curve decaying like this, we know that age is an important risk factor. If age was not important, we'd see a horizontal line, red above, green below.
Ustedes ven en el gráfico, hay básicamente dos zonas, la zona verde y la zona roja. La zona roja nos indica que posiblemente la edad es muy avanzada, pero también que la condición medida por el polinomio Z está muy degradada. Es la combinación lo que hace que el riesgo sea rojo, muy alto. O al revés, verde significa que puede ser que la edad sea juvenil, temprana, pero además la condición no está tan degradada, el polinomio Z no es tan grande.
And so, using this chart, the inspector takes measurements, they're plotted on this chart, and whenever a dot appears in the red zone, it's a signal that we should change out the item.
Claro, entonces ustedes pueden ir midiendo a lo largo del tiempo los diferentes valores en cuanto a edad y en cuanto a condición, y no hacer nada sino hasta que llegue a la zona roja.
That is real data coming from a pulp and paper company in Canada that dealt with a critical bearing on the pump. And they were doing a lot of condition monitoring on the pump. In fact, they were taking 56 measurements regularly, but using this optimizing approach, we identified that only 2 measurements were highly correlated with failure of that bearing. And we were able to demonstrate that had this optimization approach been applied, there were substantial economic benefits to the company.
Aquí hay un caso real de unas bombas críticas para esa empresa. Inicialmente tienen un sistema de monitoreo en línea con 56 mediciones de vibración. No tenían para nada claro cuáles eran las importantes, las que denotaban falla o potencial temprana. Gracias al análisis que hacemos a través del, se llama Proportional Hazards Modeling, logramos identificar solamente dos sensores generan alto valor en cuanto a la detección temprana. Si hubieran aplicado tempranamente esto, o a partir del momento en que se empezó a aplicar, se estiman los ahorros alrededor del 33% de los costos totales asociados a ese equipo.
And what I would like to do now is just give you an idea of where this all started. It was funded by the Canadian Department of National Defence, and it concerned maintenance of the Pratt & Whitney engines on the Boeing 707. And we got data from Defence Department of 50 engines, and 8 of them had been removed before the design life of these engines.
Toda esta historia empezó hace bastantes años atrás, alrededor de 40 años atrás. El gobierno canadiense decidió promover investigación sobre las turbinas de los aviones y teníamos una muestra de aceite sobre 50 turbinas analizadas. Algunas de ellas se sacaron tempranamente antes de las 15.000 horas de uso.
And the reason Defence Department was concerned is because the engineers were monitoring the health of these engines by looking at rates of change of metal deposits from one inspection to the next inspection. And they had limits on rates of change. And based on these limits, they would take an engine off the aircraft because they thought it was unhealthy and was sent to the United States, to Pratt & Whitney, for relifing. But Defence Department knew that sometimes Pratt & Whitney said the engine that was removed because the engineers thought it was going defective was in fact still healthy.
Lo que ocurría antes de nuestro análisis es que básicamente se fijaron, el fabricante de las turbinas fijó unos niveles de partículas en el aceite límite que gatillaban el que la turbina fuese enviada a overhaul, pero era reconocido de que esa medida era muy conservadora. Muchas veces se sacaba las turbinas sin necesidad de hacerlo realmente.
And so the military wanted to try and get a better understanding of what the true health was of these engines at the time of oil sampling. And so we had data to analyze coming from 50 engines. This is one of the engines that was removed before its design life. It was removed at 11,770 hours old. At the time of removal, the iron was reading 5 parts per million and the chrome 6 parts per million. And when we can combine these three numbers, we can estimate what's called the hazard as being 0.043.
Con el análisis de PHM es posible, si uno tiene un registro de las horas de vuelo, la edad, y de los niveles de fierro y de cromo en el aceite, construir un modelo que permita producir lo que se llama la tasa de falla, que es una probabilidad condicional de que ocurra la falla en la próxima hora de vuelo, o en las próximas 1000 horas de vuelo, y que ustedes ven en el lado derecho.
And what's interesting is they were using rates of change of metal deposits. Once we analyzed the engineers were using rates of change, but now we see that the absolute value of the metal at the time of inspection was much more appropriate to understand the health of the engine. And the two measurements were iron and chrome.
I didn't get the last part, sorry.
Let me just go ahead and
Okay.
say that's the first engine we looked at, but we had 8 engines to look at that were all removed before their design life. And here are the other 7. And what's very important is just to look at engine number 8. You can see I've ordered the data from the best, so the worst one at the top, from our analysis, the best one at the bottom with a very small hazard. That's engine number 8.
Tenemos un historial entonces con 8 turbinas removidas de los equipos, con diferentes edades, diferentes niveles de fierro y cromo, y que en base al modelo PHM uno puede construir la tasa de fallas para las diferentes turbinas, casos.
And after the fact, we were able to read the maintenance reports from Pratt & Whitney, and Pratt & Whitney said that engines 8, 7, 6 and 4 could have been safely left on the aircraft. Now that's exciting news for researchers, because there was a very high correlation with what we found from our data analysis and the reality coming from the engine overhaul shop.
El análisis en el taller mostró que todos aquellos que tienen asterisco, los especialistas técnicos decían que realmente no era necesario sacarlas, las turbinas. Y eso habla súper bien de lo que tienen en el lado derecho, que es la tasa de fallas que predice el modelo PHM. Que el modelo es confiable en cuanto a modelar la probabilidad de falla de un componente.
And the equation we used to get these hazards is this equation you see at the bottom of the screen. And I don't think I want to go into it, but anyway, that number there is bigger than 1, so that tells us immediately that the age of the engine is an important risk factor. It tells us the weighting to give to the iron is 0.41, the weighting to give to the chrome is 0.98.
Esa función que ven abajo es básicamente el modelo PHM, que es una combinación del modelo de Weibull, que solamente depende de la edad, T, y de unos parámetros beta y eta, tampoco necesitan entenderlo mucho, ponderado por este polinomio Z, que es el exponente elevado a algo, y ahí aparece Z1 y Z2, que son las concentraciones de ferro y cromo.
So to get that red, green, and yellow chart, there are 3 keys to it. With the military, with defense, they're primarily concerned with safety, the risk of the engine failing in service. But with industry is often interested in the consequence of failure. They're concerned with costs. We're concerned with availability. So once we had that success with Defense Department, we then extended our mathematics to include the consequence of a failure to enable us eventually to get that red, green, and yellow chart. And there are 3 keys to getting the chart.
Bien, el modelo de PHM esencialmente modela la tasa de falla. Nosotros fuimos un paso más allá en cuanto a meter la economía en la toma de decisiones. Porque un mantenimiento preventivo tiene un cierto costo y un mantenimiento de falla tiene otro costo. Costos directos y costos indirectos. Eso es lo que se considera en el modelo del chart, del gráfico verde y rojo que les mostraba anteriormente.
So I just want to very quickly give you an idea of how we do these 3 keys. The first one is to get the hazard equation. And that hazard equation has 2 parts to it. The first part takes into account the age of the item you're inspecting, and the second part takes into account the important risk factors, the measurements you're taking, and their weighting. And from that, analysing your data, we can get this hazard equation. And what's important is the constants in the equation all come from your own data. It's very much site-specific.
Acá ven nuevamente el modelo PHM, que esencialmente modela la tasa de fallas como una parte que solo tiene que ver con el uso, T, y otra parte que solo tiene que ver con los factores de riesgo Z1 hasta Zn. Y lo importante es que todos los parámetros de esa ecuación vienen de datos registrados en sus turbinas o sus motores, lo que sea que se esté analizando.
The next thing is that we have to understand how your measurements change over time. I'm going to do this quickly. But you're taking measurements, and perhaps at some moment in time you have a failure, and then you ask yourself the question, which measurements seem to be correlated to failure? And here it looks as if silicon is rising, lead is rising, just before we have a failure. But what's more important is we need to know how our measurements change over time. And just looking at one of these measurements, there's how they change over time, but analysing your data very carefully, what we can create is what we call transition probabilities. And there they are. So, from all your data, for example, if today your measurement is between 5 and 10 of iron, then there's a 39% probability that in 20 days' time it will still be in that region. There's 11% probability that it will get worse. So these are what we call transition probabilities, and we need to get them from your data to eventually get that red, green, and yellow chart.
Ustedes ven en el eje Y de esa matriz diferentes rangos de edades y en el eje X diferentes rangos para el polinomio. Lo que nosotros hacemos es construir matrices de probabilidades de transición. La probabilidad de pasar de un estado a otro. Entonces, por ejemplo, durante un cierto tiempo, por ejemplo, si la edad está entre 5 y 10, si el nivel de cromo está entre 5 y 10, la probabilidad de que se quede entre 5 y 10 en las próximas, creo que dijo 20 días o algo similar, es de 39%, que quede tal cual. Y así todas las posibles combinaciones.
So the first is the hazard, the second are these transition probabilities, and the third deals with the economics, to try and take into account the cost of a failure replacement and the cost of a preventive replacement. And we look at different hazard levels, and from that we can identify the hazard level that minimizes the total cost. And that is what we call the optimal hazard. There's a cost function coming down to the bottom and rising. So in that red, green, and yellow chart I showed you, any dot that's in the green zone essentially tells you you're coming down the cost function. A dot in the red zone tells you you're going past the minimum. And so what we have now identified is the optimal hazard. And I'll do one more slide. And there's the optimal hazard, is the intersection between the red and the green.
Gracias al modelo de PHM y los modelos de probabilidades de transición, y añadiendo los costos, podemos calcular una curva de costo por hora que alcanza su mínimo en un cierto punto, y gracias a eso construir este diagrama que es el que apoya directamente la decisión y que ya les expliqué anteriormente.
Now we collaborate with industry, we get ideas from industry, and we try and develop tools to help industry make good decisions. But we know that industry does not want a lot of mathematics and statistics. They want a tool that is easy to use. And so what we then did after doing all the mathematics, we developed a tool that we call Exact, that is very easy for industry now to do what I've been speaking about.
Como sabemos que la industria más bien quiere apoyo a las decisiones más que matemáticas puras, hemos facilitado el uso de esta herramienta a través de un software ad hoc.
And just to summarize what I was speaking about, if you want to optimize your condition-based maintenance, here's what it's all about. First of all, you need data. And most people doing condition monitoring have a lot of condition monitoring measurements, and from that we can take that data and suck it into what we call the software engine. Coming out of that, we can get the hazard equation, we can get the transition probabilities, and also we can calculate the remaining useful life. But very often industry wants to optimize, so what we can do is now ask industry tell us what the cost is of a failure replacement, the cost is of a preventive replacement, or if they want to maximize availability, the outage due to preventive work, outage due to failure work, and we then input that to the software engine, and coming out of that is a dot on the red, green, and yellow chart. And we then hope that we help engineers make good decisions, and then the engineer has to make the decision.
Perfecto. Entonces, de los historiales que dispone la industria en términos del uso y de la condición de los equipos, lo usamos como input para el software. Del software podemos sacar muchas cosas, por ejemplo, cuál es la vida residual esperada del componente, cuánto le queda. Es un tema para los mantenedores. Podemos sacar modelos de costo, de disponibilidad, y con eso apoyar la decisión del mantenedor, que también tiene que combinarla obviamente con su juicio experto.
So I've told you what's been going on in the past, but here's what we're doing right now. This is one of my research students, and we're saying to ourselves, let's try and make the next inspection time dependent on the condition of the equipment. Because if you looked at that red, green, yellow chart I showed you, we get an awful lot of dots in the green zone. People are making inspections when possibly it is not necessary. So we're concerned with trying to come up with some good decisions on when the next inspection should be. In other words, what we want to do is base the next inspection on condition monitoring data. And we call this dynamic inspection planning.
El próximo paso en el que estamos trabajando ahora es fijar cada cuánto hacer las mediciones.
So rather than do a lot of inspections in the green zone, by doing the proper calculation, we might identify a smarter way to proceed to do inspections of your equipment. And therefore, you can save money if it's a costly exercise.
Muchas veces hacer la inspección o hacer la medición saca al equipo de servicio, así que no conviene hacer demasiadas. Esa es la pregunta que estamos tratando de resolver.
So we've had good fortune in collaborating with many organizations in many countries, dealing with the optimization of condition-based maintenance decisions. And as you know, it all started with funding from the Canadian Department of National Defence when they were concerned about condition monitoring of the Pratt & Whitney engines on the Boeing 707.
Trabajamos con diferentes compañías en torno a esto.
Before I finish, I should just say that what I do is not all my work. We have a great team of researchers at the University of Toronto, and so I should just acknowledge that I get funding from companies. I have great support from students and research staff, and with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.